was working in the Chancellery hospital. One night, late in April, he was summoned to the bunker for a meeting with Hitler.
He came nearer and nearer to us. It was the first time I had seen him very close up, and I was utterly shocked. He looked lost, a very sick man. He hardly seemed human at all. I felt very sorry for him at that moment, but I knew he was a totally lost soul. Later, I always said he looked like a living corpse, a dead soul.
By the 25th, the city was virtually surrounded. Soldiers were deserting in their hundreds. Hitler ordered all deserters shot and now accused the entire German nation of being unworthy of him. He was more indulgent of his own staff. On the 22nd, he had allowed most non-essential personnel in the bunker to leave Berlin. There were now barely 20 people left attending Hitler. Amongst them was one Eva Braun. Unknown outside Hitler's closest circle, she had been his mistress since 1932. On her arrival in the bunker, she was dubbed the Angel of Death.
Sie müssen sich vorstellen, man befand sich dort unten.
You have to imagine yourself being down in those narrow bunker corridors when suddenly a beautiful, attractive woman appears. For me, that encounter with Eva Braun came as a total shock.
Im Laufe eines Gesprächs hatte ich diesen Eindruck durchaus gewonnen, denn sie äußerte
During my conversation with her, from the way she talked to me about how some of Hitler's advisors, like Göring and Speer, had abandoned him, I got the strongest impression that it was absolutely her wish to be there with Hitler at this time.
Überhaupt ihr Wunsch war, in dieser Lage bei Hitler zu sein. Und sie sagte mir auch ganz
Then she said to me quite openly, I have come to Berlin to die at Hitler's side.
Gekommen, an der Seite von Hitler zu sterben.
For those still left in the bunker, there was little to do now but wait for Hitler and Braun to act out the last scenes of their personal drama.
Das war alles, wie soll ich denn sagen, wie in einem Betonsarg, das man mit dem Leben abgeschlossen hat.
It was like being in a concrete coffin, as if all life had ended. We didn't know whether it was day or night.
Wir wussten, Hitler verlässt den Bunker nicht mehr.
We knew that Hitler wasn't going to leave the bunker again, and that the Russians were very near the Chancellery, and that this was the end.
Schon alleine, als ich das letzte Mal in den
I remember the last time I came into the bunker and closed those steel doors.
diese Schleusentüren,
They were like sluice gates.
Hebel gedrückt habe.
As I pushed on the handle, I thought,
Ich gehe jetzt in den Tod.
now I'm going to die.
Ich werde hier nicht
I'll never leave the bunker again.
On the night of the 28th of April, Hitler married Eva Braun. Some claim he did so to repay her years of loyalty. Others, that he simply wanted to avoid besmirching his posthumous reputation by dying in a suicide pact with his mistress. Whatever lay behind it, the wedding was a subdued affair.
He was wearing a wrinkled military jacket that he'd been lying in on his bed during the day. There was a gold party badge pinned to the jacket, an Iron Cross, first class, and a badge for being wounded in the First World War. Miss Braun looked pale and tired. She was wearing a dark blue silk dress with a grey fur stole around her shoulders. Goebbels and Bormann were waiting for them in the room. Then they closed the door. The whole ceremony lasted no more than 10 minutes. Then Bormann opened the door again, just as Hitler and Eva Braun were signing the marriage document.
Early the next morning, Hitler was shown a Reuters report of Mussolini's death 2 days earlier. It described how the bodies of Mussolini and his mistress Clara Petacci had been kicked and spat on by a crowd-turned-mob in Milan. The bodies were then hanged by their feet. Hitler was determined to avoid a similar fate.
Morning of the 30th, Hitler sent for me and told me he was planning how to kill himself. By then the Russians were on the Potsdamer Platz. Hitler talked about being betrayed by his generals. Said his soldiers refused to fight for him. He said the Russians might drop bombs or sleeping gas on us. He told me we had invented this gas, but now the Russians had it too. Then he said, you must see to it that my body is burned, so it cannot be carried to Moscow and displayed like Mussolini's.
Hitler called for you. What did he say? Hitler told me that he intended to shoot himself and ordered me to burn his body. He said Miss Braun would die with him, and I was to find petrol to burn her body too, so they could not be taken to Moscow and put on display. I got 6 20-liter cans from the garage of the Chancellery, but there was not enough petrol, so we had to drain the petrol tanks of some of the vehicles there.
The day before he died, Hitler said that only 2 creatures had remained loyal to him, his mistress and his dog. But it did neither of them any good. He ordered that Blondie, his pet Alsatian, be used as guinea pig for testing the cyanide capsules prepared for himself and Eva Braun.
Der Hundebetreuer, Herr Tonner, hat Blondie
The dog handler, Herr Tonner, brought Blondie to the toilet opposite my room, and Dr. Stumpfegger came to put her down. I went over and watched out of morbid curiosity.
Dr. Stumpfegger
opened the dog's mouth, put something inside, and then pressed the jaws closed, and then Blondie keeled over.
At about 3:30 on the afternoon of April the 30th, Hitler and Eva Braun entered his sitting room. Each carried a small box of cyanide capsules. He had 2 guns, she had 1, a Walter 635. No one saw what happened next, but those who surveyed the scene moments later agree on how they died. Eva Braun had bitten on her cyanide capsule and died almost instantly, kicking over a vase of flowers in her death throes. Hitler had put a cyanide capsule between his teeth, and at precisely the moment that he bit into it, he'd shot himself.
First you tell us you heard the shot, and then you tell us you didn't hear the shot, but somehow you smelt the gunpowder. How is that possible?
Well, I wasn't next door. I was in the passage 2 rooms away. Maybe the smoke came through the air conditioning.
So all along you've been lying!
Rigorous as ever, the interrogators cross-examined the prisoners time and time again, searching for discrepancies in their accounts of how Hitler died.
Describe what you saw when you went into his room.
Hitler was sitting on the left side of the sofa. He was dead. Both his guns were lying on the floor. There were bloodstains on the walls and the sofa and on the carpet. His wife was sitting next to him. Her legs were drawn up under her. There was no visible wound on her.
Otto Günscher had claimed that